You got Nebraska minus 7.5 against Colorado. 7:30 Eastern, NBC, Memorial Stadium. This game last year now, Colorado came out of nowhere from that week 1 game against TCU. In week 2, they put a hurting on Nebraska. If you're Nebraska, if you are truly making progress and taking steps forward, you have a coach in year 2 in Deion Sanders and a team in year 2 under him that is in some ways in a similar situation trying to take that next step to being a bowl team. Like, if you're taking those steps forward and you're tracking how you expect to track, you win this football game. Okay, because you haven't gone to the portal the same way that Colorado's had to go to the portal. That's the difference now. You should be overall a more solidified roster, should be all the way dialed in based on what happened last year. If you're taking those steps, both culturally and as a team, on the roster, you win this game. Now for Colorado, kind of on the flip side of that, there seems to be this feeling, and some of it's probably, an internal talking point for them, and some of it's maybe a real thing. They really want to be respected and believed in. And I think everybody wants that. The fact of the matter is, Colorado winning 4 games last year, I don't believe, have earned that respect just yet. And that's not me disrespecting them. I'm just saying if they want to be taken seriously, they want to be believed in, then go prove it. Go leave no doubt in a game that will be the game, I believe, of this whole window against a team that a lot of folks are picking to maybe be a sneaky Big Ten contender. I don't know if I go that far, but if you want to prove a point, this is your stage to do that, okay? So I'm excited to watch how Colorado responds in that setting. Nebraska fans, Colorado fans, the game is here. Make sure you are subscribed right here to the On3 YouTube channel so you don't miss a minute of the coverage and analysis we have on deck for you this college football season. Want to let y'all know the hard count is brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy, okay? All you got to do, pick 2 or more player projections, pick the more or less on those projections, you're off to the races. You play $5 in lineups. When you redeem code HARDCOUNT, get yourself $50 in promo funds, and we'll have an absolutely electric college football Saturday, and even more so a college football season. Back to the prediction. Can Nebraska keep up in the secondary? And when we say can they keep up, I'm talking man, not zone. Because if they have to sit back in zone like North Dakota State did, Jimmy Horn's going for another $150. Travis Hunter's going for another $150, and they will carve them up. Shedeur Sanders will go for over 400 yards. The key to this game to me is can they play man coverage against the weapons of Colorado? Because if they can, you put a lot more pressure on Shedeur Sanders to consistently put the ball in the right spot. You put a lot more pressure on Colorado's weapons to consistently win one-on-one, and that's the difference. That is the ultimate difference, because if you can play man coverage, you can probably start to heat up Shedeur Sanders a little bit more. Y'all, as good as that Colorado offensive line maybe looked in the box score of that North Dakota State-Colorado game, it was not a situation where they were protecting him the way they need to. There will be some chances now for Nebraska to get after Shedeur. How he handles that, in large part, I believe, will be what he's dealing with on the back end against Nebraska secondary. Now, on the flip side of that, Colorado has got to prove they have something viable up front in the run game. And when I say something viable, I don't mean they got to run for like 200 yards, 100 yards. You just can't have your leading rusher have 20 yards, okay? Like that just cannot be the world you exist in if you're Colorado. Because if that's the case, it's going to be very difficult for them to keep this Nebraska defense off balance. Like, if I'm not worried about you even potentially running the football against our front seven or against our defensive line, again, as Nebraska, we get to be a lot more complex to get after you offensively. Now, again, if they're having to sit back in zone is Nebraska and they can't keep up with Travis Hunter and Jimmy Horn, then that might just be the story anyway, much like it was against North Dakota State. But if that's the case, things could get very, very interesting. Very, very interesting. Now, if you're a Nebraska fan, this is probably who you're staking your claim on for your team getting back to a bowl game and maybe doing a lot more than that. Can Dylan Raiola, in a major moment now, his second start ever in college football, he's a true freshman, can he just play clean? Okay, I'm not saying can he go for 3 touchdowns and 400 yards. That'd be great. But can he just play clean? Because last year in this game, you didn't even get to see how your offense stacked up because you kept turning it over. Jeff Sims, the quarterback last year, had 3 turnovers in himself in this game. Okay, Dylan Raiola, you just play clean like you did last week against, let's call a spade here, lesser competition in UTEP, completing 70% of your passes, you're going to be okay. Like, that will be enough, I believe, to win this football game. But if he starts turning it over, if Colorado, has a couple of strip sacks or whatever the case is, if he has some turnovers now, you don't want to give extra shots to a Colorado offense that is proven now they're extremely potent, not just for good for Colorado in year 2. No, they're a potent offense, point blank period, especially throwing the football through the air. So you give them extra chances to hurt you like you did last year if you're Nebraska, you'll have a very similar result in Lincoln as you did in Boulder. So at the end of the day, man, I don't think anyone is stopping the passing attack of Colorado. If Shedeur Sanders goes for 300 yards, that's probably about what he should go for. That's not me down on Nebraska's defense. That's just how good he is. The accuracy, the ball placement, the weapons that we've talked about ad nauseum when we talk about Colorado, that is who they are. They will hurt you in the pass game. I don't think you can just totally neutralize it. You can try to slow it down a little bit, but even Nebraska against UTEP now kind of made me nervous. There's a few plays in man coverage where we got UTEP going bombs away and beating us for touchdowns. I'm like, hey, we got to figure that out. So you would hope against a team like Colorado where that's going to be their game, you kind of bring a different approach to the table. But I do think that Dylan Raiola and how multiple he allows this offense to be changes the entire complexion of what this game was from a year ago. I think the wide receiver play also for Nebraska, watching that North Dakota State game, I think Travis Hunter's real good. Outside of that, I think there's a lot of opportunity now for Nebraska's wide receivers to go out and win some jump balls, to go out and be able to pop the top on this defense just a little bit. So I think Nebraska will play complementary. I think that Nebraska now has a quarterback where they can capitalize on what their advantage will be in the trenches. I think Nebraska will run the ball for north of $150, potentially 200 yards against this defense. I think Nebraska wins the game. Now, I will say this. I think it's close. I do not have Nebraska covering. I think Nebraska wins the game 34-31. If you want to beat Colorado, you probably got to score somewhere in that range. If Nebraska scores less than 30, they're going to lose. Okay, just bookmark that. They're going to lose if they score less than 30. But again, we don't think that happens. We think Colorado does not have enough in the trenches to dictate terms to Nebraska, and Dylan Raiola makes the difference as Nebraska gets a huge win. In some ways, I guess you could call it a signature win for Matt Rhule at this point in time in his career out there in Lincoln. And the Cornhuskers keep it moving, starting 2-0 on the season. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.